Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. Today we're joined by Sean Goff, who is the Salt Lake City office managing partner and the Mountain West region programmer, co-director for EY, and Derrick Porter, who's the CEO of Beauty Industry Group. How are you guys?
Good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks for taking the time. It's a nice snowy day, which means traditionally we're on this podcast, ramping up to your guys' big EY event.
That's right. It's that time of year.
Yes, I love it. So 6 years, if I'm doing the math right, that we've been a partner with you guys and helping promote this event and doing various things with you guys. It's always fun, and sitting on this side of things, it's always interesting to watch who applies, who wins. And I know you sitting on that side that it's a lot of work. So appreciate what you guys do. Give us some information and a background on the event for those that aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, happy to. So the Entrepreneur of the Year program, or what we sometimes refer to as EOY, is a global awards program to recognize entrepreneurs. And we are in our 37th year of the program, believe it or not. So it's been around for a really long time. And as I mentioned, it is global. It's across 125 cities across the world, across the globe. And our program here, we used to have our own program here called the Utah Region Program. Last year, we combined with a couple other programs. So it's now called the Mountain West Program. And it includes Utah, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, and some of the other surrounding states. And it's a true competition. So the winners are selected by judges, an independent panel of judges made up of other entrepreneurs and mostly former winners of the Entrepreneur of the Year program.
Very cool. 37 years is not anything to sniff at. That's a long time.
It is a long time.
So the ones that did this 37 years ago, that would have been sometime in the 80s. No cell phones.
Yeah.
No emails. They did that the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, the world has changed a lot since this program kicked off, for sure. But what hasn't changed is the goal or the objective of the program, which is to recognize entrepreneurs that are just having an unbelievable impact on the economy, certainly our local economy.
Yeah. All right, let's dive in a little bit deeper for those that are listening. And, if it's not applicable to you, you probably have friends or uncles or nieces or nephews that are entrepreneurs. What are you guys looking for as a baseline? What types of companies should apply? A little bit of the process.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll start by first talking about the requirements to be a nominee for the program. So there's really just 3 requirements. That's it. The first one is that this individual is the CEO or whatever the equivalent title is at that company, or basically they're responsible for the day-to-day operations of the company. The next thing is that they've been in that role for at least 2 years, and that the business has been around for at least 2 years. And that's it. Those are the only requirements to be nominated. In each year, we receive about 30 to 40 nominations in Utah. I think for the overall Mountain West program, we'll probably get somewhere closer to 80 or 90 nominees, but from Utah, it's usually kind of in that 30 to 40 range. EOY winners, as I said, are selected by an independent panel of judges. So the winners aren't selected by EY or any of our sponsors. They're selected by basically their peers or former winners of the program. And in order to be considered for the award, you have to complete an application. And that application includes some financial information, some essays that really help the judges learn more about the entrepreneur and how they built their company, and gives them an opportunity to tell their story. And then also throughout the process, the entrepreneur will have an opportunity to be interviewed first by some EY executives that will come out and interview the nominee, and that information gets passed along to the judges. And then if the nominee is selected as a finalist, they'll actually be interviewed by the judges themselves as part of the process. There's also multiple events that are part of the process, including a nominee reception, and then also, as I mentioned, the interviews, and then also the award ceremony, which will take place in June. So that's a little bit about the process. And in terms of what the judges are looking for, it's not all about financial performance. The judges really want to hear the struggles that an entrepreneur may have come across, or how they've overcome those things, how they built their team, what impact they're having on their community, or how they're changing an industry. All those things are important. It's not all just about financial performance and growth.
Yeah. And I've interacted and spoken with a lot of past winners, which, you mentioned most of them turn into judges. They take it serious, right? And I think that's a good thing, because you can spin up a competition and, like if it's not arduous and vigorous, people will know that. And for somebody to have gone through it, because it's not easy, right? You've mentioned several steps and processes and interviews, and obviously you need to be squared away as a company to gather all that information. It makes the judges appreciate, right? Like, you clearly didn't put enough time and effort into this. They're defensive for you guys, right? They want
for sure.
Good quality.
I've sat through a lot of judging meetings, right, where these judges, to your point, have spent a lot of time looking at applications and spending time interviewing, and they really see themselves, to your point, as almost a protector of the program, right? They're winners of the program, and they want to make sure that future winners are deserving of that honor that they received as well. And so absolutely that's been their attitude and the way that they think about it when they go through the judging process.
Yeah. And you mentioned, 30 to 40 nominees generally from Utah. I assume it's kind of agnostic. It could be SaaS, it could be fintech, it could be consumer goods.
Yeah, great question. No requirement in terms of industry, or they can be public or private. That doesn't matter either. It's really, and so we'll see that. We'll see companies from $1 billion in revenue down to as little as 10 million. And again, there's no bright lines for how big a company is, but certainly what I've seen is I've again observed judging panels in the past is they like to see proof of concept. So they want to see that the company at least has enough revenue to show that, hey, there's something real here, right? That what they've built matters to their customers. And so usually that's around 10 million in revenue, but that doesn't mean that we haven't seen companies recognize below that. But that's usually a pretty good threshold to think about.
Yeah. And I imagine, there's several that apply year over year, and it's probably fun to watch like those revenue numbers go up drastically in the course of a year.
Yeah, no question. We see a lot of return applications that maybe didn't win last year or even the year before, and even people take a couple years off and come back because they wanted to grow the company a little bit more. So the only thing that keeps you from applying again is if you won already, right?
Yeah.
But and so we do see a lot of return applications, and I think they learn through the process and maybe even get a little bit better about what they put in the application, what they talk about in their interviews. I think it really helps them prepare for future years.
Yeah. All right. So on that vein, Derrick, you will not be applying this year because you've already won.
Right. Right.
So give us a quick background of the beauty industry group, and then talk about your experience going through the process, ultimately winning. What takeaways do you have there?
Yeah, so Beauty Industry Group is a holding company of 12 different brands throughout the world. We have offices and locations in 5 countries and employ just under 600 people. And I'm in my 17th year here at BIG, and every year I'm surprised I make it another year because I've been convinced that one day people would stop buying hair extensions, but they keep buying them. And we're grateful for that. It's been a really fun run. And just one comment, if I may, real quick, around the judges and taking that seriously. This is my 3rd year now being a judge, and in the prior 2 years, I would say at a minimum, it is at least probably 20 plus hours of just review on the actual companies themselves, looking at financials, reading, watching videos, and then there's time outside of that as well, that where judges are getting to know these people, and so the judges are putting in that kind of work, and so my feeling is that we want to make sure these nominees are putting in the same amount of work as well, because you can really see that. And if you'll do that, you have a great opportunity to be able to get good feedback and be able to grow and build with it. My experience, to your earlier question, has just been a phenomenal one. In 2020, I had a sponsor come and say, you ought to consider applying for this. We did. I remember typing through, what felt to me like the longest, biggest year-end paper in my college years that I had ever done on the business. But I really appreciated it because it allowed for me to go back to the very start, which then was 15 years earlier, and remember all the blood and the sweat and the tears that had brought us to be able to build a company to where it was today. By the time I was done with that and I hit submit, I remember I was driving to St. George in the passenger seat, hacking this out with my wife as she was driving and asking her how it sounded and stuff. I actually had my confidence level increase in my business and what we were doing, and my level of conviction go up. That was maybe something that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been forced to sit down for 5 days worth and just spend time, cataloging and categorizing everything that I had gone through. So I was really grateful for the experience.
Yeah.
We hear that a lot. I've heard that from several people who participate in the program. Is entrepreneurs and CEOs are so busy, right, heads down, trying to make their business successful, that they rarely take a moment to really reflect on what they've accomplished. And this program really kind of forces people to do that, right? To think about, hey, what have I accomplished? What were the hurdles we had to get over? Where was it kind of touch and go? And those are all the things the judges want to hear about, because they've been through all those things, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The human memory is an interesting thing, right?
Yeah.
Until you're forced to rethink some things. Weirdly enough, even if it was like really happy or painful, you kind of just gloss over that. But that's been a recurring thing. We've done this for 6 years, of whether it's like I felt like I was writing in a journal, or I felt like I was rereading an old journal, of like, oh, that was quite the journey.
Right.
And ultimately, a lot of folks have been, ooh, team effort,
Yes,
right? Team
absolutely.
effort. And like, that's got to be a good feeling, knowing that it was a collective of
Absolutely.
dedicated folks working on it.
Yep.
All right. So you were solicited to apply. You obviously knew that it had merit. You knew that it was going to take some time and effort. What was it like next as like the process continued to go through?
Well, for me, it was a little bit different, because this was in the heart of the start of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
And we didn't know where this was going to go. It was touch and go for a little bit of time. And so everything went virtual while I was there. And in fact, the EY team came and said, do you want to poll and reapply later, or do you want to keep going? And I thought, I'm going to keep going, because I've already done all this work, and now's the time to allow for that to go. We had opportunities to meet the judges. It was virtual. Andrew Smith from 4Foods Group back then was my judge, along with a host of others. And I found that experience to be very rewarding. I felt like I had a mentor that not only was asking me questions, but they were thought-provoking and giving me the opportunity to go back and reflect further on what I did. And I think there was actually changes really that were made to my business because of the experience through, applying for this EY award. That over a period of 6 or so months, I was more in tune with my business than I'd ever been. This was coinciding at a really critical time, because every salon in the world closed down.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, oh my gosh, like, great, I'm going to get this award maybe, and then my business is going to go bankrupt like the next week. How are we going to make it through this?
Yeah.
But in the same process of what had carried us through the prior 15 years to that point, my team and I were able to sit down and come up with, a framework to be able to help us deliver and walk that through. And I think it all melded together to be just this really euphoric experience in a way that I'll never forget. Not me and my team will never forget those early days of 2020.
Yeah.
And this was a meaningful and beautiful part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. You guys were throwing a lot of curveballs, obviously EY planning the whole thing during the pandemic. But there's obviously a lot of silver linings with going through this. But that's a silver lining in that you've got really good feedback and advice, even if that wasn't the purpose of the call, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Which is what a lot of people pay a lot of money for, right?
Yeah.
They're usually called consultants.
And the wisest nominees that I've seen over the few years now that I've been able to be a judge have asked for feedback.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm surprised by the number that don't. But you're right. You've got this audience here of people that I'm not going to say are any smarter or better, not at all, but have had some experiences that may be able to benefit. And to me, it's very insightful when a nominee says, hey, by the way, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
How would you have done this? Do you have any feedback for me? And that shows someone who's teachable and humble, and their mission and vision is bigger than just them and an award.
Yeah.
It's so much broader and bigger than that.
I think Derrick's really kind of alluding to what I hear consistently from people that participate in the program as another benefit, right? And that is just the networking that happens as a result of being part of the Entrepreneur of the Year program.
Yeah.
And that includes the judges, as Derrick just alluded to. It includes other nominees where you have opportunities to, like I said, we have a nominee reception where you'll have an opportunity, if you want, to meet all the other nominees. And I say this all the time, right? But I think being a CEO and entrepreneur can be pretty lonely. There's only a handful of people that understand what Derrick goes through. I certainly don't. I run the Salt Lake office, but that's different than being the CEO of Ernst & Young. And so meeting other people that have the same challenges that Derrick has, I think is really valuable. And that's an important part of the program.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So everyone's got their own, personalities and the way they view businesses and people. But for those that are thinking about applying and those that will, what are some things that have stood out to you? What are some things they could do to make themselves stand out? Whether it's just really squared away, every dot is covered and every T is crossed, they're funny, whatever it is, right? Like I kind of respond well to lighthearted humor.
Yeah.
Other people might be like, oh, take it serious, buddy. But what are some things that you look for?
Well, I think what I've looked for is finding an entrepreneur who is in it for the experience and what they can learn from it. For me, education was less about what school I went to and more about what I was going to learn from going to school. And the same thing in this process here. What am I going to be able to get out of it and learn and achieve more so than just standing on the stage and holding an award? And you can sense and tell sometimes what the motivators are for the individuals. And when someone is motivated by forward progress and improvement and being able to recognize a team and a group of people, that really, stands out to me and means something. I think additionally, I would say take all of the questions that are asked very seriously. It's disappointing when you get in there and you read and someone literally, there's a question that's one paragraph and there's a sentence that's one answer. And that just tells you a little bit about how serious the individual is taking it. It should be a fun experience. We shouldn't take it so seriously that we're like, oh my gosh, my identity is tied up in this. And if I don't win, you have to dare to swing at the plate.
Yeah.
But let's take it serious enough to say, like, here's who I am and here's what I've done for better or worse, and to be able to share that and being very careful to not put so much polish on it that it almost feels fake.
Yeah.
I think the biggest rule is just be you, be authentic, share the wins, share the losses, share the concerns, be vulnerable, because every judge in there knows exactly what it's like to be worried about making payroll. Yeah. They all know what it's like to have a conversation with a partner or a spouse and say, what if this doesn't make it and we run out of money? Are you going to be okay with that? And so be vulnerable and open and fully willing to be able to show the good and the bad and the ugly, because it's that entire package that actually makes the entrepreneur the entrepreneur. We're not looking for something with just ribbons and bows and perfect polish. You're looking for that entire package.
Yeah. Yeah, that adds the drama and the story of the whole thing, right? Yeah. All right. I love it. So your guys' office, correct me if I'm wrong, is in Salt Lake, Sean?
That's right. Yep.
So driving down here to Lehigh, you probably passed dozens, if not hundreds of companies that would be a good fit. And we've already hit on that it's, agnostic as far as industry and size of the company. You hit on a few key metrics, but for the most part, most of these companies would be a good fit. If somebody's sitting on the fence, what would be some words of wisdom to get them off the fence and encourage them to do it this year? Because it is a new venue, by the way, right?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So we, as I mentioned, we combined last year. Last year we had a couple of award ceremonies. We had one in Denver, one in Salt Lake, and we just felt like we were missing having that whole group together. So that's what we're going to do this year. The award ceremony is going to be here in Utah. We're going to do it up in Park City, and we're excited about that So we're going to have people flying in from Denver and Seattle and Portland and wherever else the nominees might be for the event. And we think it'll be an exciting event where we're announcing the winners. And I think all these companies that you talk about as you drive along the I-15 corridor would be eligible and would be great nominees for the program. As we talked about, there's really just three main requirements that we talked about before.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, what I would say is why you should jump in are some of the things we've already talked about, right? It's the opportunity to reflect and think about what you've accomplished. It's to network with other entrepreneurs that are similarly minded to you. And then I think it's also an opportunity, and Derrick alluded to this a little bit, but is to celebrate with your team, right? Every entrepreneur I ever talk to, the first thing they're always say is, hey, I didn't do this on my own, right? And sometimes they're hesitant to get into the program because they feel like it's just recognizing them. Yeah. Which is true. It is an individual award, right? It is the entrepreneur that we're recognizing. But if you use the program effectively, you can use it to celebrate with your team, to recognize your team, to invite them to some of the events that are part of the Entrepreneur of the Year program, like the nominee reception and the award ceremony, where you can celebrate, hey, look what we've accomplished together. And I think entrepreneurs that do that and use the program in that way find that it's worth their time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then applications are due by March 3rd.
March 3rd.
Yep.
That's when the applications are due. And if you are interested and you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We can help you with the application process. We can answer questions. We actually have a couple of workshops coming up that if you reach out, we can let you know when those are. Those are application workshops to help you think through how you do that. So we want to be as helpful as we can through the process. Our sponsors are also available to help with that as well.
Yeah. So, you've given an amazing platform. It's going to end in a fun night, but then you also do a little bit of hand holding. You're taking a lot of the excuses out of the equation that people might come up with.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, people are busy too, right? So I get it. Because again, this isn't just something where you just say, yeah, I'm in, right? There's some work to be done, and it's a true competition. But yeah, we try to make it as easy as possible to apply.
Yeah. I've met a few people over the years that were involved either as judges or finalists, and they weren't sitting at a table with someone, but in the cocktail reception or after in the parking lot. There's been a few where it's like, I met them at EOI, right? And they're only bringing that up because something really good happened from it. So at the very easiest element, just showing up, you might meet somebody that could really help transform your business in a really positive way.
I think that's true.
Even if you've got event fatigue, right? Which not a lot of people have, at least for a while. It'll get back to that. But just showing up, especially with this group of people, you never know. Okay, so we've defined who would be a great fit, and it's most entrepreneurs. March 3rd is the deadline. You can reach out to folks for help, for guidance, for clearance. There's workshops. Derrick's testified that it was a great experience, well worth the time and effort. And I imagine it's something that you kind of can reference as, I was squared away. I was validated by my peers, and it was a really fun event.
Yeah, and on that note, I mean, I never say hey, my name's Derrick, and I was a EY winner, in 2020, of course. But it's been surprising as we've sought to recruit and try to bring more people to Utah, that without me ever referencing that at all, people do their homework and everything's out there in digital now. But that is a contributing factor to people wanting to recruit and come to Beauty Industry Group, is being a part of a winning organization, and people want to be a part of a team that's going to play to win and that is going to win.
Yeah.
And there's been some nice, kind of intangible benefits that have come from just having association with the program through EY, because this is something that is known, 37 years, and it's global.
Yeah.
Right? It's everywhere. And so no matter where you go in the world, people recognize that. And there's been a lot of benefits that have come from that perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't mention, Garrett, but maybe it's worth mentioning now, since what Derrick said is we have our program here, the Mountain West program. The winners from those programs go on to compete at National EOI in Palm Springs every year in November.
Yeah.
And so there's a big award ceremony there. And then the winners the overall winner that's selected at National actually goes on to compete at World EOI in June in Monaco every year. So it truly is a global program. And what we're interested in is just recognizing these entrepreneurs that are building amazing companies.
Yeah. And you got some really good geographical spots picked out for
real, right? Palm Springs in November is not a terrible place to be.
Yeah. You've got it dialed in there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sean. Thank you so much, Derrick. Appreciate you guys taking the time to join. And as always, appreciate you, with your continued support over the years. We're happy to play a very small role in this, and congrats on everything you guys have accomplished.
Thanks,
Derrick. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.